Hello, everybody. Welcome behind the plate. I'm David.
I'm Jordan.
And I'm Dylan.
How you guys doing today?
Well, I'm really tired because Jordan was acting like he was 3 years old this morning and wouldn't get out of bed.
Hang on, I have an excuse, okay? I'm dealing with late night paper hangover, okay? So
who's the idiot that decided to stay up all night writing his paper instead of doing it?
Who's the idiot who had two papers due, like, back to back?
Who's the one who had more time
break.
to do it and didn't do it?
Well, you know what?
Oh my gosh, you guys are ridiculous.
This could be the start of every show. We're just going to argue. You're going to ask us how we are, and we're going to argue.
I know.
Fine, it's my fault.
It is
There
your
you
fault.
go.
Yeah.
At least
I'm
we
gonna
have
do
one
papers early
person.
next time, so
One person's the bigger man.
So I'm not up until 7 in the morning.
Yeah, I'm the
All right.
bigger man because it's his fault.
I'm the tired man.
I do remember when I was in college and I had to write about 9 papers a week, so I
Okay,
completely
that's not a
understand
thing.
that.
Jordan's not writing 9 papers a week.
Wow.
Nobody's
I'm trying
writing
to give
9
last
papers a
semester-
week.
I actually was. I'm trying to give him credit. I was double major.
What did you study?
Criminal justice, political science.
Why are
Political
you
science, I
writing-
had to write like 6 papers
I
a
can
week
see
on it.
political.
Last semester, I had
So
like
annoying.
3 papers due, all in like a time frame of a week.
So would you say that you're pretty big into politics, David?
No. Well, I follow them, but I don't really talk about them much.
On like
Don't
Twitter?
worry, everybody. This
You
is
can follow
not
him
going
on
to
like
be
Twitter or Instagram or. I think we should talk about politics.
That's all Twitter.
Definitely not. We'll talk about baseball politics.
I think
How's
that's a good
that?
idea. Why don't we do that?
All right.
How are you doing, David? You doing all right, man?
I'm all right. I'm a little tired. I've worked a lot this week, but other than that, I'm doing all right.
Okay. Well, it's about time you grew up and started. Like you got a job because you've
Yeah.
been sitting in your mom's
Yeah.
basement,
Eating
recording
Funyuns
podcasts
since I was 12. Right.
Yeah, right.
Just recording these podcasts.
I don't even really like Cheetos that much, so.
Today is November 27th. At time of recording, we're going to be putting this one out on the 29th. We're going to be talking about some free agents today and pretty much the whole Houston Astros scandal. We're going to be diving into that.
Change up.
up.
Yeah.
It's,
I was ready.
So I think Jordan has a list of the free agents that have signed. And
Yeah,
so
I've got
have him start
a
off.
small list here just from baseballreference.com, but the first guy on the list here is Travis d'Arnaud. He signed on the 24th with the Atlanta Braves from the Tampa Bay Rays. And then another guy, Yasmani Grandal. That was a big signing for the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah.
If I'm correct, that's the biggest contract the Chicago White Sox have signed.
Yeah, and it
correct.
was, 4 years?
It was 4 years for
73?
73 mil.
Yeah.
Where did we? I know we had talked about him on our free agent list last week. Where did we say that we had him?
I had him going to the Reds.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
Which I still think the Reds are kind of in a market for a catcher.
Yeah.
But Travis d'Arnaud to the Braves, that's a really big pickup. I mean, they lost Brian McCann, who had a pretty good season for him last year. Obviously, he retired, and hopefully he has a happy retirement. But
Yeah.
Travis d'Arnaud is a pretty good pickup. That's a really good Brian McCann-esque replacement. I think he's a better defensive player, about the same hitter, maybe a little bit less power. And so I think that's a really good pickup for them. Obviously, the White Sox getting Yasmani Grandal tells me that they're maybe not all in this year, but they're moving forward. And that's a good
It
thing.
can't get any worse than what they've got. So.
Right. I mean, they have really good prospects. They need veteran hitting in the form of Grandal and then maybe one big bat or something. You need to go get either a big bat or a big pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
David, how do you feel about Chase and Shreve?
He's a player.
He's a player.
He's better than I am.
I didn't know if
That's
he
not
was
saying
like.
a whole lot.
I didn't know if he was like actually important for you.
No, I mean
But-
not crazy. I mean he's a
Was he in the MLB? Is he a prospect?
yeah, he was in the
MLB?
MLB.
Okay.
He's a good player, like I said. He's not someone I'm handing the ball to.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the stats
Like
here from
crazy.
last year, he had a 16-8 record with a 3.71 ERA. He signed with the New York Mets,
Yeah.
and then Chris Martin re-signed with the Atlanta Braves. So that's Atlanta trying to, just keep their bullpen that they had from last year.
Right. And that was one of their big falls, is they didn't have much of a bullpen. They had Mike Fiers out of the bullpen in the postseason, and he should definitely be a starter.
And then we've got some news from some other
Was it
guys
Mike
we had
Fiers?
in our
I
20
think I
free agents
misspoke. It
last
was
week.
not Mike Fiers. I have to think of who it was though. But continue.
Okay, sorry. Just some guys we had on our top 20 list of free agents last week. Jose Abreu decided to go with his option with the Chicago White Sox, so he'll remain in Chicago for a while.
I'm pretty sure that's what we said. We thought he'd stay,
I said he'd stay there. I didn't think
And-
he was gonna take his was that arbitration contract?
Yeah.
And then he, signs an extension. It's a really good pickup for the White Sox.
And then we also have Jake Odorizzi signing his player option with the Minnesota Twins.
Which I didn't see coming.
I didn't either, to be honest.
I really did not see that one coming. I thought Odorizzi, and I probably should have because he's probably not much more or worth much more than what the arbitration's eligible is worth. But I just didn't see that coming. I didn't see him staying there.
I just realized looking at these stats now. I was talking about Chase and Shreve had a 16-8 record. I didn't realize that was career stats.
I was gonna say
That
that
wasn't from
sounds.
last
I
year,
was
that
like
was
that
career
sounds. That sounds a
That's
little
my
bit bad because I
Anyway,
was like, I don't know about
wait,
that.
were you saying that was for a season?
I didn't know.
How in the world is that for a season?
Anyway, okay. So Will Smith,
Great actor.
this, I feel like this came out of left
He's a
field.
great actor.
But
Yeah,
Will
he's pretty
Smith
good.
signs with the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, and that's a really good pickup for the Braves. They needed more bullpen help, and they went and they got, I would say, a formidable closer. He may not have a huge track record in terms of closing, but he has a huge track record in his career of being a good relief pitcher, and that's what he is.
That's still a really big lefty arm to have in the bullpen too.
Also, yeah, that's very true.
Love them lefties.
And
Yeah.
then, since we're talking about Atlanta Braves still adding to the bullpen, they re-signed Darren O'Day. Don't know how you guys feel about that one, but I feel like he's semi-decent.
I think Darren O'Day's okay. I know my fiance hates him because he scrapes his knuckles on the ground, and she's like, "That's just I don't like that."
What's her name for him? She.
I
has
don't
her
know.
name.
She has her name for a lot of people. I don't think she has
Nick
her name for-
Markinkles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say Brian Snicker's name, but I can't say that on this podcast.
God. Keeping it clean here on Behind the Plate.
Yeah.
So as far as free agents go, those are just some of the bigger names going on here. So
Okay.
yeah, that's pretty much all we got on the free agent side.
In terms of trade rumors, there's not too much moving. I know that there's a pretty big market for catchers right now, especially in the trade market with Yasmani Grandal and Travis d'Arnaud going.
I
So-
did read an article literally before we started
Mm-hmm.
that MLB execs, we already discussed this in the previous podcast about how they already think that either Chris Bryant, Mookie Betts, or
Francisco Lindor.
Francisco Lindor will be traded, and MLB execs think that Mookie Betts is the least likely to be traded out of all three of those. So they think at least Lindor and Chris Bryant will be moved, or are more likely to be moved than Mookie
which
Betts.
makes sense. I think you go out and you're trying to lower your contracts because that's why Boston would trade Mookie Betts. I mean, they're still contenders. I think the only reason you would trade Mookie Betts is to lower yourself under luxury tax, and they can do that otherwise. They have a big contract in Xander Bogaerts and a few other players on that team that they can just get rid of. So you guys have to be happy being Yankees fans. Jacoby Ellsbury.
Dude, you have no idea how happy I was when that article came
Yeah.
out.
Well,
And
I think that he does because we were
Yeah.
together when we started it out, and we were at practice, and Jordan was like,
I mean, I'm screaming,
jumping
we're
around.
finally free.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Just
Absolutely.
funny because you guys, so you're paying him $26 million to not be on your team for the next 2 years.
It's ridiculous.
So isn't that great?
Well, we're filing, what is it?
Yeah, I know you guys
Grievances
are.
against
Yeah,
him,
I know
yeah.
you guys are
So-
filing
so we're-
grievances, but
We're trying not to pay him for the next 2 years, but
usually you'll have to.
usually.
We'll
try our
see if we
best.
can get out of it.
But he's only played 12 games for you in
In
his
the last,
7 years
4 years.
his 7-year contract. So
yeah.
I just remember the headline. Somebody posted it the other day. The headline said, "Sorry, Sox. We stole Jacoby from you."
It was an article
And then
from
it
the New
says
York Post.
Yankees signed
Yeah.
Jacoby Ellsbury 7 years, $163 million. And then somebody else put the post that Boston
released him.
had
Oh.
after he was released, and it was thankfully Yankees took Jacoby, release him 2 years before his contract's over. It made me laugh. But
Yeah, it's not very funny.
who would have seen that coming, honestly? Jacoby Ellsbury is such a good player in Boston. And
You can't really guess stuff like that. Like
No,
it just,
you really can't.
It's the game. It's what happens. So
All right. This Houston Astros are 2017 World Series champions. Made it to the World Series this year. And as far as I know, there's a little bit of questioning with this year's World Series as well.
You say a little bit?
A little bit of questioning, we'll call it. Well, I mean, the reports aren't really focusing on 2019, so it's mostly just 2017 stuff. So I don't really want to dive too much into 2019 and speculate an overabundant amount. We can still kind of talk about it. I know you had a stat on your phone the one day.
Yeah, let me pull it up because it was a stat from the 2017 World Series comparing the Houston Astros batting averages between away games and home games.
And I know,
I mean, the difference was just like insane.
And I know one of them was Evan Gattis. And Evan Gattis, if you don't know who he is, he's basically a lumberjack that
he's
plays,
a janitor.
He
plays
said a
baseball.
lumberjack.
Yeah. The knob on his bat. Have you ever seen that thing? The dude literally swings a log.
It's huge. He's about 6'4" and like 380 pounds. I'm just making complete guesses.
He's a big dude.
But he doesn't hit
I'll
very
look it
well.
up.
He does not hit very well. He is a career I'd say 2 to sub 2 hitter, and he had an unbelievable postseason in World Series that year, specifically at home. And you showed me those stats, and he's still looking them up now, but they were baffling. And I mean, it was him, and I think Correa was one of the other ones, and Altuve.
Sorry,
maybe?
it was Evan Gattis, Jose Altuve, and Carlos Correa, and I think maybe Alex Bregman.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I pulled up Evan Gattis here. He's 6'4", 270 pounds.
I was pretty close,
really
yeah.
close.
Pretty close. Oh, did I say 380 or?
Yeah, you said 300 some pounds. You gotta give him a little bit there.
A little bit less. A
You
little
gotta
bit
give him
less.
30 pounds.
He is all muscle though. Evan Gattis, if you're listening to this podcast, please don't come hurt me.
His career batting average is 248. So that just kind of goes back to and to see that his batting average is way different at home is even
right.
Like
it's
that
just
just
crazy.
looks it's even crazier, right?
But this all started. News broke that there was information about the Houston Astros potentially stealing signs electronically and transferring them to their dugout, the players in the dugout, and then using noise to make the hitter aware.
Right.
And then they have videos that show various players, including Carlos Beltran, who's a part of this, I guess, hitting, and you can hear audible bangs. And I'm sure you guys have seen the video. It's not good. Like, it's terrible for baseball. It really is. And to have Carlos Beltran in it, who's now managing for the Mets, and who's the other one? I can't think of his name. Alex Cora? He was a
for
part
the
of
Red
it
Sox.
too.
Yeah, he was the
Red
bench
Sox
coach.
manager.
He was the bench coach at the time, and now he's the manager for the Red Sox. And so it's just to have everybody involved. To me, it's disappointing. You know, I look back at that 2017 World Series, and obviously, just as a baseball fan, that was a great World Series. I mean, you had game, I believe, 5, game 6, game 7 were all incredible games. I can't remember which one of those 3 was the game where it was just like back and forth the whole time, and it was just 9 innings of what felt like the 9th inning of the game every single time. But I look back at it and now I'm like, less disappointing, because that game where they came back 4 different times was in Houston.
Yeah.
And so it's like the Dodgers should have won that game.
Right.
And I'm not saying that they cheated on that day, but if they were cheating the whole time, then they cheated on that day.
Right. And like, I'm a broadcast guy. I do broadcast stuff, and it's really easy for them to set up a live camera and have it feed to their dugout. The other thing is now, it's one thing to see the other team's signs, but it's knowing them too. Like, if you're watching some of those videos, the catcher is also giving multiple signs.
Mm-hmm.
And like from our experience of playing, you don't always know what it is. Typically, you catch on to what it is that they're doing at some point. Like when I played, we did verbal signs. So if I'm out on second and I'm seeing the guy's base, I might say his first name for a fastball, or like say, "Hey, come on, McManus," for off-speed pitch, something like that. But for how quick they were picking up on these signs,
Right.
it's ridiculous. So either they were able to watch them enough times to where they could be able to say what's going on, but at the same time, it's like they always knew what the signs were.
Yeah.
So
Did you see the setup? Okay, so there was a tunnel video that I believe MLB took for the World Series. It was the Houston Astros like coming out of the tunnel up into the dugout, and you can blatantly see like a table and chair like set up outside of the dugout. And so I don't know if you guys saw the pictures
Yeah, I
of
saw
that, but there
that.
was like a whole setup with like TVs and laptops there and a guy running it. And so what they're saying is that was the guy who was pulling in the live feed from the
from the
center field
camera.
camera. And then there was another screen that was run from that setup
into the dugout.
into the dugout.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they had that screen like under the stairs, and all the guys would get together and try to interpret signs from the catcher through that feed.
Right. And to your point too, before going back just a second here, is when you're saying, you're like, "Hey, come on, kid," for like a fastball and stuff
Right.
like that. That verbal. I'm not saying there's not cheating in the game, but this is a whole different level.
No, for
This
sure.
is using. It's abusing the cheating.
And
And
I
to
would
me,
say
it's just
that
bad.
like there's nothing wrong with giving verbal signs and stuff like that on the
I agree.
field, because you're on the field, that's fair game.
Right.
As opposed to using outside people who aren't playing the game to steal signs, it's absolutely ridiculous.
And on top of that too, there was an email that was leaked that spoke about stealing
Is this
signs.
on WikiLeaks?
No, this is actual.
Oh.
So they actually spoke about the email, and a lot of people just read the article headline and was like, "Okay, well, they're stealing signs."
Yeah.
But what most people don't, if they would have read it, they would have realized, and I know that a lot of people didn't read it because I was talking to people who just are like, "Oh, just stealers see they're stealing signs." Well, the email implicates that they're stealing signs from the dugout, not from the catcher, with their electronics, and then taking the signs that they're using to figure out where the shifts are going to be, what pitch sequence they're going to use, different signs like that, so they can set themselves up to use video to steal signs from the catcher.
Yeah, this isn't like some rinky-dink setup.
Right.
Excuse me. It's like they obviously put some thought into this, because like it's not just some 12-year-old sitting in the back of center field with a camcorder. They clearly, as like Jordan was saying, they had a whole setup, basically a control center that was feeding to the dugout, and who knows where else.
Right.
It could be they might be recording footage so they can know signs for next games, or they could be collecting some sort of database of like signs of other teams and when they play them and stuff like that. We don't know. So it's just crazy to me to think, like, one, why I get wanting to win, but to even go through all that work to get all that technology and that setup just to steal signs of winning games.
My thing on top of that too is your team is talented.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to steal
Right.
signs because they're sweet.
Yeah, they're a good team, but it's a very terrible thing for baseball. It really is. And for them, I was looking at Houston as probably the number one dynasty that we have right now.
Right.
You had the Giants in the early 10s. You had
Right.
some would say the Cardinals.
No.
Before that, you had the Yankees.
Right. Yeah.
You had those dynasties, and now you have Houston, and now you're just like, well,
They were
kind
like,
of.
my way of putting it is they were kind of like the Golden State Warriors of baseball at the time. Like
Yeah.
you
It's a
knew
great-
that they were
yeah.
always going to make a run for the World Series.
they were going to
whether-
be close.
right. And then now hearing this even makes even more sense.
Yeah.
But like it comes back, like they're a talented team. Why do you even need to do that? Like what is your?
I don't know.
There's no need. When
And-
you're a good team, you're a good team.
And on top of that, Houston broke the mold. When they went to the American League, for our younger audience who do not remember, Houston was in the National League Central. They transferred over to
Right.
the American League. And when they moved there, they were a terrible team. And it's no knock on them. They knew it. They traded away everybody, and they did it so they could go get so they could rebuild.
Which they did well.
And they did, and they rebuilt really well. I mean, most of their, you look at like their bigger names like Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, Alex Bregman, Jordan Alvarez. Now, I mean, they drafted them. They drafted those players,
Right.
and so you look at that and you're like, okay, this team did something. You know, we need to use their mold to help our team. You know, teams like, the Royals right now, Detroit right now, they need to turn it around, kind of like Houston was, and they need to use their mold. Well, now how
those
much
were
of
teams
their
too that were big teams back in the day at the time, right?
And now you're looking at it and you're like, well, how do I change my mold based off of Houston, where I don't know where the mold stopped and where the cheating began?
Right.
And I'm not saying they did it all the time,
right?
But how do you know when it started? And I think that kind of also throws just like a wrench in the whole. That was their first World Series, first win ever. And so now, not only that, as a Houston Astros fan, you have to be extremely mad because the only World Series championship you have is tainted.
Right.
And that's just, you came from being, especially if you came from being a Colt 45 fan.
And that assumes that they were using it in the World Series. We're not
right.
Like,
that's all.
entirely
Yeah.
sure.
That's also.
We're not sure how long they've been doing it. It literally could have just been the past few years.
They're doing a lot of research. I think Jordan has the stats here, so we'll go ahead and.
Yeah,
give you
sorry,
those.
I've been out of the loop for a while, but I've been trying to dig a little bit for these. But okay, so Jose Altuve's batting average on home during the 2017 World Series was .472 with a .513 OBP, a 1.028 slugging percentage, and on the away splits he was batting .143 with a .268 OBP and a .229 slugging percentage.
Wow,
it's pretty decent.
That's pretty.
Carlos
good.
Correa at home batting .371 with a .421 OBP and a .743 slugging percentage. Away, he's batting .211 with a .231 OBP and a .395 slugging percentage.
Gosh.
Alex
These are like
Bregman.
steroid numbers right here.
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous.
Alex Bregman, all right, batting .273. This is at home. .273 at home with a .342 OBP and a .515 slugging. Away, he's batting a .154 with a .175 OBP and a .333 slugging percentage.
What was that? Three.
Lots of
slugging.
threes. 333.
It's
Winning
raining
number
threes
is 3.
here
Isn't it-
behind the plate.
Here's another guy that might surprise you. Okay, this is Brian McCann. Okay.
Oh, I remember
So
this
if this doesn't tell you anything, then I don't know what will. Okay, Brian McCann at home, 300 batting average with a .382 OBP and a .467 slugging percentage. Okay, Brian McCann away, .037 batting average with a .161 OBP and a .037 slugging percentage.
Say that guy didn't hit like that in New York. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
Like, we had to sit there and watch him, and to see Gary Sanchez come in, we were like, thank the Lord. Because
Yeah.
Brian McCann couldn't hit himself
Did
off
you
a wet
want
paper
Evan
bag.
Gaddis?
You have Evan
I
Gaddis?
have Evan
sweet.
Gaddis.
Let's see it.
His home batting average was 300 with a .464 OBP and a .550 slugging. And away, he was batting 200 with a .333 OBP and a .200 slugging.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible.
Oh
Those
my
splits,
gosh.
those splits are just they're bad. And not only is it the Houston Astros, they're also implicating a few other teams too. They're making accusations, and I can't remember all of the teams that they were saying. I think Boston was one of them. Milwaukee was one of them.
Guess it didn't really work out for Boston this
There
year.
was
did it?
Boston, New York, the Dodgers.
And New York was the other one.
Arizona, the Blue Jays,
It's about
Yeah.
New York Mets or Yankees.
Yankees. Sorry.
Yeah, there were a few of them that they were implicating as well. And I actually saw. Did you guys see the Twitter beef between Yu Darvish and
Justin Verlander?
No, the one between Yu Darvish and Christian Yelich. It was probably the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah,
There
no
was-
one needs to steal signs when you're pitching.
So
yeah.
Yu Darvish, if you haven't heard about it, it was really funny. Yu Darvish was just all up in Twitter right after this happened, and he sent out a tweet, tagged Christian Yelich in it, of a Christian Yelich at bat. Christian Yelich steps into the plate, does his pre-routine step and like hits the plate, brings his bat up, and then gets set. Well, when he's set, he's like looking forward and then looks a little bit to the right and then looks back. And all he does is just move his eyes. He doesn't move his head.
He's just surveying the field.
Right, just looking at the field.
You're looking, where am I going to hit
and
this?
So Darvish is basically saying that he's cheating. He's stealing a sign from out there. And the funniest response I've ever seen on Twitter from a baseball player, Christian Yelich, goes, "Dude, no one needs to steal signs to hit off of you." And it's so funny. But then somebody else, so a baseball analyst, made the point, talking about 2017 World Series. Obviously, Houston faced the Dodgers. Yu Darvish at the time was on the Dodgers before he signed with the Cubs, and Yu Darvish was basically saying, "Well, that makes a lot of sense why I got beat up around or against Houston." And
or you suck.
Somebody was like, "Weren't your 2 losses at home?" Or maybe it was just his 1 loss or something like that.
It's just you can't blame your lack of ability on this too. That's the other side of the coin. Is that no matter if a team's cheating, you can still find a way to win.
I mean, yeah, still look at it as in terms of like, Yu Darvish isn't the greatest pitcher. Clayton Kershaw, who faces the Astros, is not good in the postseason. Even if I think that he is probably the best pitcher in his career that we've seen, still not good in the postseason. He's terrible in the postseason.
Not great. I love him to death. He's a good guy. He's a great pitcher, but
Kenley Jansen,
he's a completely different person. So
Kenley Jansen was out of gas majorly. I mean, he was out of gas in the NLCS, and then he made it to the World Series and was just like, "Guys, can we please not?" I don't know. There's a lot to it. They're still doing more and more digging into it. I think this is gonna turn into criminal. This is. I don't know what you guys think is adequate punishment.
That's what I was going to ask about. Do we know what kind of punishment we're looking at? Has the MLB hinted at anything?
No, they've hinted at it being the most severe, harshest punishment that they've seen. And I'm going to make a prediction. My prediction is this turns into a criminal case, and we see at least 2 lifetime bans.
Wow.
I'm saying, I'm honestly, I think it's going to be lifetime ban for maybe our first. I don't know if there's actually been one, but I think maybe our first lifetime ban from an owner perspective or a GM perspective or both, because it's really hard to be like, yeah, I own the Houston Astros, but I don't know what's going on.
That's the thing.
It's really hard to say.
That's what it comes down to is who's really organizing all of this.
Yeah.
Because maybe that is something that they're unaware
it might be.
But if you're a good manager of your organization, you better know every in and out of what's going on there. Like, you got to get down there at some point,
The other thing on top of that, and this is just my opinion, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but this makes me so irate that it just, at the end of the day, you're cheating, you're taking talent away and big moments away from the actual game itself, and you're making that 2017 run that the Houston Astros have, and you're making it tainted. And to me, this is like the 1919 Black Sox, and nobody on that team is in the Hall of Fame. And I could see something close to that being put onto these, because it's just, you're knowingly cheating. Mm-hmm. And to me, Carlos Beltran's a Hall of Famer, but after hearing that he was a part of this, I don't want to vote for him.
But that's the other thing. How much of his career was really there, and how much of his success can you really contribute to this?
And that's what I'm saying.
Because there's so much more to his career that it makes you lean towards not wanting to vote for him, but it doesn't take away from
it's integrity.
His career. Right.
How many times
he's a veteran. He should have the integrity to put a stop to this.
How many times did Pete Rose vote on or bet on himself? or bet against himself or anything like that. How many times did the 1919 Black Sox throw the World Series? Just once. Right? It's the same thing. They're doing it, even if it's just once. It's the integrity of doing it. It's knowing, hey, I'm cheating to get this win, especially in a World Series. Like, why? That's just something. I get it, you want to win, but you're diminishing the game.
Can you give a little bit more background about the 1919 Black Sox?
1919 Black Sox, basically, it was a big betting scandal. The 1919 Black Sox were basically paid to throw the 1919 World Series.
Which, again, the culture at the time is probably a little bit more lenient on that.
Yeah.
Going into the Roaring 20s and whatnot. So.
And the biggest turn away from that is Shoeless Joe Jackson, who is the number, I believe, 3 all-time hitter in terms of career batting average. He was not voted into the Hall of Fame. I believe there was a ban put on everybody that was on that team could no longer play in the MLB. And actually, the Field of Dreams has Shoeless Joe Jackson in it, basically saying that he wants to play baseball again, which, I mean, he's not alive, so...
oh, dang, bummer.
But
really thought he was.
Yeah. Incredible player, should be in the Hall of Fame, is not in the Hall of Fame. And if you look at the stats of the 1919 World Series, I don't remember exactly what he hit, but he hit about 360. I'd say like 364 or something like that. So
that's really good.
How do you throw in the World Series when you're hitting 364? I feel like he was the only one that wasn't.
Right. That's what I was going to say, because you don't have to participate, but you can't help what the rest of your team is doing.
Right. Exactly. So... like I said, though, I don't know what they're going to do with the players. I don't know if there's going to be fines, if there's going to be suspensions. I have no idea what's going to happen with them, but I think there's going to be lifetime bans handed out from this because it is that big of an issue.
Sorry, were you interested in the Joe Jackson's 1919 stats?
Shoeless Joe Jackson? Yeah, what was it?
Okay, well, as far as the 1919 season... He batted .351 with an OBP of .422 and a slugging of .506 and an OPS of .928.
He's good.
And then that was just for that season. For the 1919 World Series, he batted .375 with an OBP of .394, a slugging of .563, and an OPS of .956.
Yeah, see, I mean, he had incredible stats. Do you have the rest of his team pulled up on that? The rest of his team hit like a buck. Literally,
that's
hit
the
like
thing,
one.
and there was clearly no change from the rest of the season to the World Series for him to even make it seem like he was trying to throw
exactly, and that's what to me. That's I still think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
So
that's just me.
They actually weren't hitting a buck. They were hitting slightly. Well, they were hitting a lot better than that.
Were they?
Yeah, they were hitting 282, 290, 319, 256, 296, 302, 351, and 275.
Is that for the season, or is it for?
That might be for the season.
That was for the season.
But
yeah, I'm saying for the postseason.
Because they threw the World Series.
They threw the World Series. Their team was incredible.
So with that, as Jordan's pulling up the stats, with that being said, we're kind of coming back to the Carlos Beltran thing. If we're looking at Joe Jackson and we're saying he can't really help the rest of his team throw the game in that sense, and but he is still a Hall of Famer, how does that relate with? I get that Carlos Beltran can put a stop to the cheating. It's not like his team is throwing a game.
To me, he was also in a video where he was using it.
Oh yeah,
and that's where it gets me. Is he was in the video using it. And the other thing too is, I know this is going to sound really contradicting, but this is, for some reason, this hits me more than steroids does, because steroids, you still have to have talent. You may be helping yourself getting bigger and stronger, but you still have to, at the end of the day, hit the
can't
ball.
Enhance your mental game.
Right.
It
can't.
A lot of baseballs, knowing what the guy's going to throw, yourself adjusting to that, what comes out of his hand, knowing your counts, stuff like that, being able to react to those situations, and that's nothing steroids can.
And my MLB The Show fans out there, you guys know, like, guess pitch, that helps you. If you know what pitch is coming.
I hate that so much.
Yeah, if you know what pitch is coming, it helps. And players, by all means, do that in the MLB. They guess what the pitcher is going to throw, but then when it's not that, they have to adjust. And even if it is, they still have to hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Well, if you have steroids, you still have to hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. I don't care how big or strong you are. If you know what pitch is coming, it's a lot easier to anticipate it. It's a lot easier. Go to a batting cage and hit compared to hitting off of a live pitcher who's throwing you junk.
Well, you can watch guys take
so much
BP
easier.
before practice.
Right.
Guys like Aaron Judge, just taking them out every pitch, stuff like that. And to go back to the guest pitch thing at MLB The Show, that's something that when we were younger, Jordan and I argued about it all the time because Jordan loved it. Jordan was like, sweet, and Jordan's guessing every pitch and I'm throwing whatever. To me, it felt so unrealistic to baseball. It's like at that once you guess it, it's basically given to you at that point, and that's not how the game works. In my experience of ever playing baseball, I could know what the pitch is coming. You know what I mean? I still got to hit it. I still got to time it up, whatever, which that still applies to the game. And that's same for those people that are using cameras. They can know what pitch is coming, and they've got to be able to time it up and hit it. But like you said, it's so much easier to know what is coming. Yeah. And like even in my experience of having people using verbal signs on second, of knowing whether a fastball is coming or an off-speed pitch, helps out a lot. But like, it's vague to have an off-speed pitch. You know, someone tells you, hey, off-speed pitch. That could be a curveball, changeup, whatever. And you still got to read out of his hand. I'm not exactly sure how specific the Astros signs are getting.
They were getting very. I mean, they were. If it was nothing for a fastball, 1 knock for a changeup, 2 for a slider or a curveball. And that's
where it gets ridiculous. It's just absurd. Like you're taking to me, that's just taking fun out of the game. Like, why are you even playing at that point? Because you're not employing any skill. And I get that it's an industry and it's a business, but that's definitely not why you played growing up. Right. You didn't grow up playing, I'm going to do this for the money. It's because you genuinely love the game and everything about it. So it's to me, it's kind of it's insulting the game as a whole. Like, we're just going to exploit this. We don't really care what else happens. Now they're going to be facing consequences, and it sounds like you said that MLB's been hitting at it being one of the biggest consequences they've ever had. But it's
Before we get into the 1919 thing again, I also want to run this by you too. I heard a few people say that they should strip the Astros of the 2017 World Series championship and just make that a vacated championship, which would be interesting. I don't think they'll do it though, and this is why I don't. Is because we've had all these steroid scandals, and yet they don't strip them of. Like, Pete Rose still has his hitting title. I mean, he didn't take steroids, but he did cheat in the game.
But, I mean, I would just like to argue that if you're going to bet against yourself, wouldn't you rather bet against yourself and lose instead of bet for yourself and win? I'm just saying. True, you have way more control to lose a game than you do. Like, Pete Rose can... To me, that's just Pete Rose having a big head and confidence and saying, shoot, I'll freaking put money on it. I'll be the best hitter in the league. You know, as opposed to saying, like, we're probably going to lose this game and throwing it. But... Very true. I'm a big Pete Rose guy.
I am too.
He's the reason I wore. I agree. The reason I wore 14 my whole life.
Yeah.
But with that being said, there's still issues with it.
Right.
And that's something we could get into another day. With other betting websites and how integrated gambling is in the sport now, and whether or not that's right. But anyways, you were getting at.
Like Barry Bonds still has his record.
Right.
Stuff like that. So I mean, you look at all that, and I don't think that they're gonna take.
I don't think
World
so
Series away. I think
they still need to do more investigation as well, and whether or not they were even using it during, like,
the World Series,
like because it could have been something that came later. It could have been something that was just this year. It seems like we need to do more investigation in it.
Yeah, and there are players that are stepping up saying that it was happening during the regular season, during the postseason. Do you know
who specifically said that?
Mike Fiers is one of them. That's why I remembered his name earlier instead of saying it. I still can't remember the
other guy that you're referencing.
He's a lefty, big lefty from the Braves that I was thinking of before. But anyway, I know Fiers was one of them. I know that there are other ones that aren't named, but I don't know who they are. But we'll turn over to Jordan. You got the stats, buddy?
I do have his stats. Okay, so as far as the 1919 World Series goes, as a team, the Chicago White Sox batted .224. And so that's with Jackson's batting average being .375.
So they batted .224.
So just looking at other guys here, like there's a batting average of .226, .250, .192, .233, .167, .056, and that's a guy who played in only 5 games with 18 at-bats. But then you have a guy who played in all 8 games with 25 at-bats who batted .080.
Yeah.
That's 80 cents. Jeez.
Yeah, it's pretty alarming, and
if that.
I don't know everything when it comes to the Black Sox, but I do know that Shoeless Joe Jackson should be in the Hall of Fame, and he's not.
Right.
And that's part of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's about all. That's all I got.
Yeah, I don't think any other interesting facts. Jordan's kind of our statistician right now.
About the Houston Astros.
Yeah.
Anything else?
One thing that I was going to bring up was their K percentage. Because, and this isn't just from 2017, this is from 2013 to 2019. So it's just a drastic
Are you talking about
change here.
strikeouts as at bats? Right.
Yeah, their
Not
strikeout
as
percentage,
pitchers.
like how often
Right.
they strike out.
Yeah.
So from 2013 to 2015, they ranked last in the AL on K percentage. And then,
Meaning they struck out the most.
yeah, they struck out the most with, 25.5, 23.8, 22.9. 2016, they were second to last with 23.4. 2017, they jumped from second to last to first place
Wow.
with 17.3. Okay? 2018, 19.5, that's second best in the AL. And then 2019 was 18.3, which was the best.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
So tell me, how do you go from a team, with the worst K percentage in all the league for 3 years in a row, almost 4 years in a row? I mean, you can make the argument, sure, they added more talent, more players and whatnot, but you don't jump from second to last and last to
Right.
first place.
A
Did
few,
you-
a few different players don't turn that into
Right.
the best in the game.
You need to write an article on this, man. Like, that's really some really
Well, there's
bold-
already a bunch of info out
Is there
there.
really?
Other people have already touched on this. I'm just
Have they?
touching on their info.
Gotcha.
But,
That's
yeah.
just like that's
That's
insane.
interesting, yeah.
Like
I
to
haven't
build an
heard that.
argument off of this kind of information is very convincing. That's all I can say.
But that's all we've got for the Houston Astros. When we get more information about them, we'll probably talk on them a little bit more, and hopefully we can get, before the season starts, we can get some type of resolution to
Yeah.
this, and hopefully no other team does it ever.
Let us know what you guys think about what's going on the podcast. We love to hear what you guys have to think as well. Hit us up on social media. We've got Twitter and Instagram, I believe
Yep.
so. And you can keep watching us here on YouTube until we try to get out to other platforms. We're going to start looking into that. So tell us
Yeah.
what you think. We love to hear what you guys have to
Leave
think.
your comments down below if you want anything for us to talk about, anything in particular as well. And that's about all we got. Have a nice day.